Welcome to Video Battlethon, inspired by Gary Vaynerchuk, John Su, and Michael Rossmer's video number 56. And I titled this video called The Flow of Life. One interesting metaphor that I kind of spontaneously came up with is life is kind of like a river that you're floating down on a floaty, and you can paddle your arms and kind of control how you're floating side to side, but when you're on the floaty you're kind of going in one direction. So when I think about how being on the river on a floaty is like life, it just made real sense to me that everyone starts at birth and ends at death. So it's kind of like A to B. You're alive, you're dead. So let's go back to how I find this, why I think it's a useful metaphor in life and how it does actually improve your life. So in life, everyone probably has come to the realization that life is really good and it also really sucks. Right? Different aspects of good and bad. So if you think about life is, if you're starting at A and you'll always end up at B, and that these circles here are kind of like events and experiences in life. Some are good, some are bad. No matter what, you're going down here anyways. So for all the good stuff, right? People want to paddle faster, get to the destination because they can kind of see what's ahead. Might be a job promotion, maybe getting married, whatever it may be. When we see positive stuff, we paddle towards it. But when we see negative stuff, what do? We're paddling in reverse like crazy, right? And especially if you're going down a river, if you've ever paddled upstream, it's extremely exhausting, right? So this is the magic part I want you to think about is negative stuff. When you see it, how much energy do you actually burn and use up trying to avoid it or just stressing the shit out about it? It's exhausting. Stress is exhausting. Dealing with negativity, not even dealing with negativity is exhausting. Avoiding negativity is exhausting. Right? It's actually a lot. You spend a lot more energy avoiding negativity than actually going towards it. Right? So think of it like this. You see negativity ahead, and then you start paddling backwards. But no matter what happens, you're still going to hit that negativity. Right? So if you're going to hit the negativity anyways, wouldn't it make more sense to not waste energy trying to avoid it? And if you look at your life, stuff like when you realize your marriage is over, and you're in denial about it, and you're stressing about it, and all this stuff, delaying leaving the marriage, everything else. How much extra energy do you use to avoid it? As opposed to, the moment where you're like, yeah, this marriage is over, it's done with. And you crystallize that, and you just take action towards that. And when you think about it, the relationship is over, it's a negative situation. You go towards it. And it just seems, feels anyways, like you've used a lot less energy than, the whole time that you were in denial about it or refusing to accept it, right? Avoiding the negativity and paddling upstream. And often in times, there's going to be experiences, good and bad, that we do see, but it's often the experiences, good and bad, that we don't see that create often the biggest shifts in us, right? I always go back to negativity has a bigger effect on a person than positivity. So I'm going to give a good example of negativity that might have started off as good, but then ended bad. So say for example, you got a job promotion, making more money, You know, all this promotion's been a job you dreamt about at the company. So you go into it, next thing you know, you realize the extra money you're making doesn't compensate for, you know, double the amount of hours you're working, the headaches from, you know, being upper management and dealing with stressors on bigger levels. So what you thought was good, that you're going towards, eventually ended up being your nightmare because you didn't realize how much more responsibility it came with, how much more headaches that it brought, the more complicated problems you had to solve and be responsible for. Right? So when you're, how would we say, you just kind of fall into that negative situation, you're kind of in the middle of the jungle and now you just gotta deal with it. Right? Those situations, while you're in that moment, you know, dealing with it, you use energy, you feel tired, but nowhere as exhausted, you know, as when you're thinking about, you know, maybe you got a warning that you're going to get laid off, and for the next 2 months your life is hell because at work you're worried about getting laid off, and after work you're worried about, you know, not having a job and getting laid off. Right? So just think about it. You getting laid off or not getting laid off, it's not really in your hands, right? Here's the destination of life. You're flowing down the river. You paddling upstream is not going to help you avoid that. You're going to hit it anyways. You're going to have to deal with it. Whatever happens is not so much the focus. It's more of whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Whether you get fired or you get laid off. But the whole point of it here is using extra energy to stress or avoid it or deny that it's actually happening is just inefficient use of your resources. And what I'm saying here is, when you see negative stuff, of course you're not going to run into danger, but at least don't paddle upstream and waste all the energy and stress. Right? Because when you think about it, stress is what makes a person sick. Stress is what makes you age, get wrinkles. Stress is what makes you drink alcohol and do drugs. And when you reflect back on life, when you, how do we say, accept the negative situation you're in, and then take action on whatever needs to be done to dig yourself out of the hole, does it feel good? No, it doesn't. Is it easy? No, it isn't. But one thing I do know is when we're taking action on a shitty situation, I'm not as exhausted as when I'm worrying about bad situations that are about to happen. I'm not as stressed out, you know, when I'm, you know, stressed out as when I'm actually in there dealing with things, talking to people, making stuff happen, right? Like in business, things go good, things go bad all the time. And in business, everything's moving, different things are happening. It's not all good, right? Everyone thinks, like I remember when I first became self-employed, made my own hours, was, you know, I was the boss, I made all the decisions. What a great option. But with all that, how would we say, choice and responsibility of effective use of time, I had way too much time on my hands. And it was kind of overwhelming. When you have that much choice and time on your hands, you run out of things to do, you don't know what to do. And that becomes a stressor, right? So going back to my story, don't mean to segue, is life is like a river, you're going down that way no matter what. Good shit's gonna happen, bad shit's gonna happen. You can save energy, time, and stress when you see negative things instead of avoiding it or repressing it. How would we say? Accept it that it might happen and just plan on what you need to do to deal with it, rather than just stressing and worrying about things that might happen. Just accept that it's gonna happen and plan to deal with it. You definitely guaranteed will notice how do we say, a difference in vitality, strength, and stress. Guaranteed. Like when you think about it, reflect back on your own life when you had to deal with a really stressful or shitty situation. Were you more exhausted dealing with it at that moment in time, or were you more exhausted thinking about it and fearing about what was going to happen or might happen? Right? And there's a big difference between, oh, here's what I got to do, you're actually taking action, versus, oh my God, what am I going to do? This could happen, that could happen, this can happen, this can happen. And you're not really planning on what to do, but you're more fearing about what might happen. Right? So, don't believe a lot of the things that I say. Look back in your own life and reflect upon, what actually happened. How did you deal with it? And you'll notice there's a common theme. When you think about shit going to happen, you're exhausted, it's draining, it's tiring. But when you're actually dealing with shit, it's not as draining or tiring. It's actually, how would we say, when you're dealing with shit, it's kind of like eating a bitter melon. I don't know if you ever had a bitter melon, or actually, sorry, not a bitter melon. It's like doing a tasty shooter that you like to do. It's a little bit sweet and a little bit bitter. That's when you're taking care of when shit happens. But when you're just stressing about shit, that's like drinking Drano. It tastes like shit. There is no sweetness to it. It's just nasty. So that's my 2 cents on why life is like a river. There's only one direction. You can't avoid going in that direction. Shit that happens along the way will be different stuff. You can semi-control that, because you can go towards the good and then try to steer yourself away from the bad. But then sometimes in life, you don't know. There's bad shit you don't see, and you're going to hit it. And that's the point of when, instead of stressing about shit, wasting energy, inefficiently wasting energy, accept it and plan on dealing with it. Would love to hear some feedback on people if you actually try this, just for a comparative difference. Maybe start with something small. Don't start with something big. Start with something small, like somebody you want to go tell them go piss off, right? Somebody that's been annoying you, just something small. Instead of stressing about, oh, I gotta see that person, oh, they're not so nice, just walk up and say, hey man, you pissed me off, you're a piece of shit. And just, how we say, analyze how you're feeling before that happens. And as you start to become, how would I say, more familiar, escalate it and deal with bigger things. And it's kind of crazy, as you become more familiar with using this form of dealing with negative stuff, you realize negative stuff doesn't have that big of, doesn't have its claws in you like it used to. It's just kind of, it just loses its bite. And it doesn't, I'm not going to say I'm fearless, I'm not scared of nothing. But it takes some really scary shit to actually scare me. Or to make me lose sleep, or to stress out. I haven't, lost sleep or wasn't able to eat due to stress for a really long time. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on effectively using your energy and thinking of life like a river. Paddle downstream, but definitely don't waste your energy paddling against the stream. Thank you.